Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and we have a special pre-taped Star Citizen Live. So this week it's Star Citizen Not So Live. For all the people who are going to be asking, when Twitch chat asks, is this live or whatever, just jump in there and be sure to correct them. This is your chance to jump in there with the knowledge and say, no, it's not live. And we're gonna fix the little bug that goes up there, and it should say not live. And just tell them, look at the corner of the screen and everything. That's how you know. We had a pre-tape because I'm here by myself. People have days off and stuff, so we're running the spaceship by myself, and so just to make sure everything went fine, we recorded this earlier in the day. Joining us on the show this week to talk all things Arena Commander and Alpha 3.20 and beyond, our director of, oh gosh, your title is so long now, Sean, you better do it. What's your title now?
Senior Director of Tools and Tech Content.
Senior Director of Tools and Technology. How do you get to be a Senior Director?
You be here since the dawn of time, I guess, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. And Duncan, what's your title?
I am lead gameplay programmer of the Arena Commander feature team.
Lead game. You did that so well, man. You're like right there in the spot.
Mine's nice and simple. Mine doesn't have seniors and all this twos and stuffs in it.
It's because he still has all his hair. You know, he's still very young.
For now.
Yeah. Well, if I were better prepared and knew we were doing this, I would have had the titles all prepared. Really. So enough of our preamble. If you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of our Friday and we chat with our developers. Today's discussion all about Arena Commander, the big. It's got to be the centerpiece of Alpha 3.20. It has been some time since Arena Commander took this kind of precedence in a Star Citizen patch before. So we're really excited to bring it back into the light. In the limelight, give it some spotlight focus. And to do that, we posted a thread up on Spectrum, which is our bespoke communication platform, available on robertspaceindustries.com. We let you submit your questions and then vote up which ones you wanted to see answered most. So with that, if we're all ready, we'll just jump right in. Our first question was from Korean Beagle 1 and says, any updates on private lobbies? You had to know that was going to be voted high.
Oh yeah, well, and I mean, private lobbies is something that really hurt my heart. From the standpoint of I was running the team when we had to remove them. Was the thing, and it wasn't something that we actually removed. It was we had changed over some details that Duncan would probably get into, some details with the lobby system, so that we couldn't continue to support the private matches. Now, it was always the thing was next quarter we'll bring it back, next quarter we'll bring it back, next quarter we'll bring it back, and it was always something got the resource got taken, something got missed or whatever. So finally, with a little bit of a collaboration with our new friends at Turbulent, we've been able to bring back online private lobbies. So, Duncan, do you want to talk any more about that? Maybe some details over why it went away? Or
Yeah, so it went away essentially because we did that big refactor where we got the friends and party systems to the new system that we've got that you're using in PU now, and that just simply wasn't compatible with what we had in Arena Commander. So the option at the time was we delay this or we shut down private lobbies for now and we revisit it for the next thing. And as Sean says, priorities got shifted. People get moved on to different things and it just kept getting pushed out. Now, thankfully, we're working on it, and we didn't want to just bring them back, right? We want to do better with them. We want to give more. So private lobbies aren't called private lobbies anymore. They're called custom matches, right? And custom matches leans into, you'll be able to customize more things about it. And we've got so much more planned for it. For now, we're getting what was old back with private lobbies, but we've got so many ideas, so much requests from the community for what we can add there as well.
And are these?
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Are these custom matches in Alpha 3.20?
Yes.
Cool. What were you going to say, Sean?
Yeah,
the reason we paused is it's coming in literally as we speak.
Yeah,
right? That's why both of us went. Well,
actively being worked on
checks
with the highest priority.
Checks in the mail, but it's not quite that bad.
All right, so the goal is for the custom matches to be part of Alpha 3.20.
Yeah, we were pushing really, really hard for that. The next update from Arena Commander had to have that back in. We know how much the community wants it. We know how much the devs even want it. I mean, for a bunch of different reasons anyways, but being able to set up private matches for the community is imperative. So we want to support it.
Next question is from Shafto. Get a doctor to look at that. Will organizations be able to arrange for two opposing teams of predetermined members to play against one another without random players? It's custom matches.
Do you want to take that one, Duncan?
Yeah, so that this leans into the whole we want to do better with the private matches, right? So the almost obvious thing is letting you arrange your teams beforehand. So we've got the idea of you've got a party leader, you've got moderators that can help, switch people between teams and whatever. And then you've obviously got the members that join. And then for right now, we've got that team organization, and we're hoping to get some custom settings in and expand upon that. But yeah, bringing back org content to private matches is such a big thing for us because we knew how much orgs used it. We saw the weekly posts on Spectrum like, hey, we're running an org event, who wants to join? And as soon as the private lobbies went down, that went away, and I'd get pinged constantly about, hey, when are we getting them back for that specific use? And we really want to start accommodating that again.
Yeah, because basically the competitive scene basically shut down without private matches, without being able to customize the match parameters, and it's something that we always want them to be able to have within AC, because ultimately, the PU is a multiplayer experience. AC is, played best in multiplayer with friends, and we want that to be easy as possible, and honestly, be able to set up your own little scenarios, and I think that's really cool.
This next question is from Helrain? I don't know. He's a question after my own proclivities. Will there be a rank system so I don't have to play against better players?
So there's actually a lot to this question. Now, right now, so behind the scenes, there is a ranking. And behind the scenes, it works here and there, but it's not as simple as just a single value. We've come a long way in matchmakers in the game industry overall, where it's got to be region dependent, it's got to be skill dependent, it's got to be time dependent. There's so many different angles of matchmaking. So, sort of with that, Duncan, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're gonna do for these guys?
Yeah, so as you guys know, we have the leaderboards that are currently online, and they haven't really been representative of, leaderboards for a while now. The algorithm behind them broke. People have found many exploits behind those leaderboards. So we want to completely rework those at the same time as doing this proper matchmaking. And that matchmaking is the thing that will have to come later because it needs more help from Turbulent on the online side. But the competitive community in Arena Commander and Star Marine is so passionate, I'll say, about leaderboards and that matchmaking behind it. And we really want to hone in on that, and especially push Squadron Battle and Duel to be our primary competitive modes because we think those better reflect those as well.
Super Senka 4508 says, with all the new modes, are there any excellent unlockables like in Vandal and Pirate Swarm?
Go ahead there, Duncan.
Yeah, so as you know, we have unlockable for Vandal Swarm. It's you complete it, you get a Spectrum badge, but you also unlock the pledge store page for the glaive. Pirate Swarm, it's the same deal, but you get the Pirate Cutlass and the Pirate Gladius. We're going to keep those as rewards, but the badges themselves, that's Tasha, has been updated, so you'll get a new Spectrum badge for those. But we've also added some more when condition badges in there. So as you know, Tank Royale and Team Tank Battle are coming with 320. If you win one of those matches as the highest scoring player, you'll get a reward, which is a Spectrum badge. And some of the other new game modes, including Gun Rush, will have those as well.
Now, are you leaving room for future things? Like obviously, the other modes give access to the pirate versions of those ships. We're leaving room for future promotions with future things that could be conceivably added to this.
Yeah, so we have a lot of ideas. We had a brainstorm session, right, where we had so many ideas of different ways to reward people. And right now we're going with the simple wins. So we're keeping it simple with Spectrum badges because they're fairly easy to get, but we've got some more challenges coming up, which we're hoping will have better rewards. It's more than just Spectrum badge. We're talking with, PU teams, the Spectrum and teams, and seeing what more we can give that's got a little bit more flair to it. And even within Arena Commander itself, like we want to reward people with stuff in-house to Arena Commander. So Arena Commander actually supports skins and all this stuff. So we're hoping to get those as rewards eventually.
Cool.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off that, like the questions in regards to some of the matchmaking, ELO ranking, as well as this are all related. What this has to do is some level of progression within Arena Commander, a reason to play this. And a lot of us this generation of gaming or before, we kind of need some progression. You need some level of a little bit of persistence and a little bit of progression within each one of your game modes, so that there's you kind of feel like the reason to keep logging in and to keep playing it. And we want to have all of those things within Arena Commander, and it's nice because we have an entire game of content to pull from. And a lot of these are the same conversations that we had during times of when Fire Sprite was working on Arena Commander. It was all the same sort of progression that we'd like to still put in place here, but we've got to get all the fundamentals, just like we talked about, in place first, which is the badges, the experimental modes, and private matches. And now that we've got that kind of stuff, now we start making the more reasons for the players to be there, and a little bit more driving the engagement, if that
Right.
makes some sense.
It would be. I think it would be a pretty obvious choice to have like a special a paint or whatnot
Totally.
that says "I kicked ass in Arena Commander," and you get it through earning that and stuff.
Well, it's even further because what Chris wants, and definitely something we've talked about on length before, is the connection between Arena Commander and the persistent universe. Because for a long time, right, we've had the sim pods. The sim pods were the hangers. We want them in the persistent universe. We want it so that they can go from persistent universe, jump in a sim pod, be in Arena Commander. You're in this, the simulation that we talk about all the time. But we don't want that to be meaningless. We don't want you just to leave and go to a different sort of game. Why not be progressing Arena Commander reputation? Why not be progressing some level of persistency within the PU, so that all the stuff you're doing in Arena Commander is actually benefiting you in the PU, or vice versa? What about things happening in the PU benefiting you in Arena Commander? What about ships you own benefiting you in Arena Commander? So there's so many layers of connection that can be made once that progression and persistence, I guess. I hate using the word persistence, but once some score persistence is in place, because the persistence I'm talking about is not the persistent universe. This is just keeping a score.
Hearing that, I'm ready to pitch you on my last Starfighter game mode. The faction that uses the game to find recruits. For the persistent universe. There's a whole last Starfighter thing that can be done with this. We'll talk afterwards.
Well, hey, with custom games, with custom modes, you can make it yourself. That's the beauty of it, right? So.
All right. Here's a big one. Will there be a spectator mode for streamers or casters to hold private competitions?
Yes. I want to make that very clear that yes, we do want spectator modes, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a diatribe as I do, because spectators to me in Star Citizen and in Arena Commander itself are more like newscasters is what I always saw this as. Like, always saw this as a newscaster role, as a reputation or something you could do, where there was this idea of always being able to record things that were happening in the persistent universe. And I think you've heard this pitch from me before, Jared, where you would go in and as a newscaster you'd probably want to put press on the side of your ship and all these kind of things, but it'd be dangerous to be capturing battles and things like this that were going on. So I like the idea of spectators actually being a real thing within Star Citizen, but within Arena Commander, I think the little more classic game sort of standpoint makes a lot of sense. Just to be able to, especially during the race, like during qualifying or whatever, you want to be able to spectate and see what's going on. Especially now, oh man, with these new racetracks and watching some of the Avocati people play them, yeah, you want to be able to spectate these guys because they're freaking good, really good.
All right. So one of the big aspects of Arena Commander in 320 is that it also incorporates Star Marine, bringing it into the fold under one, unified umbrella. So we have a couple Star Marine questions here. Right off the bat, this has always been a big one. Shafto again, get that looked at, man. Will players be able to save loadouts to choose from quickly in the new Star Marine?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So, as you might have read in monthly reports and in ISC, we're introducing the spawn screen to pretty much every game mode. The first step of that is, just getting a simple spawn screen with a deploy button, right? The second step is getting selection of your loadout, that being a different ship or a different kind of loadout. As you know, we've got, I think, 3 different loadouts at the moment. You've got both control ones and elimination. And then step 3, I think we're on step 3. Yeah, is the customization. The customization of those loadouts, right? That's a very complex system we're dealing with there when we're customizing things. So FPS is a little bit better for us. That's pretty simple. You've got your armor PCs, you've got your weapons, you've got your consumables. For 320, we're simplifying it down because unfortunately we haven't been able to get the customization in time for 320, but we're wanting to make the flash experience in the front end better because that UI is not the best to deal with. But instead of having so many tabs and so much to change all those PCs, now it's just you just change your armor set and your weapons. But eventually we want all that customization to be part of the spawn screen itself, so you can change everything on the fly. And the same with vehicles, but vehicles will of course come a lot later down the line because that is a far more complex thing than FPS, where ships have so many different variations of loadouts. So that's going to take a little bit longer. But yeah, we definitely want to get all that in game, so it's a far better experience. You switching on the fly, customizing on the fly, like you're used to in modern games nowadays, right? We just have to catch up to that, and hopefully it's not too far after 320 for that.
Cool. While we're on Star Marine, Hoffman wants to know how likely we are to see medical gameplay added to the team modes for Star Marine.
Very likely. I love the medical gameplay that has been being developed for Squadron 42, and we're probably bound to Squadron 42 bringing online their medical gameplay first before that comes into AC. But as soon as it is, I mean, there's game modes that make a lot of sense to have our medical gameplay.
Yeah. And another part of that customization I was talking about earlier is we've actually added the utility slot is now actually a utility slot, whereas before you were bound to it was a knife, which isn't really utility, but now you can bring in your multi-tool or your med gun in there. So we're hoping to expand that in the future. It's just right now, like as you know, Star Marine, it doesn't have the down state. We have that disabled because it just doesn't work for fast-paced game modes that we have right now. But maybe as we explore different things in the future, we'll use experimental modes, for example, to test medical gameplay and see how it suits the current game modes and future game modes we work on.
Gotcha. For Star Marine, this is from Doldol. For Star Marine, what are the plans to address the animation desync and netcode issues, the lag between clients, extended freezes, teleports, and etc.?
Well, I guess this is kind of a performance question, really, right? It's a question of networking and performance overall, and it's a great question because this is the bread and butter to what the challenges to making this game always are and always have been. I do want to mention that it was recent. Duncan had actually sent me a streamer at one point that was beside himself with the frame rate that he had. Who was the streamer, Duncan? I can't remember.
Lyric. He just got
Lyric.
off of playing the PU, went to Star Marine, and he was like, why is the FPS so high?
Right. And it was the Good Doctor, which is typically like the heavier of all the maps anyways. But yeah, he was running at like 120 frames, 140. It's just a ridiculous frame rate in comparison to, what a lot of people will report from the game. So to answer the actual question, though, is it's already improved. One of the big things that has actually changed was that we've been experimenting with these 144 hertz servers just at way faster update rate that's been going on. There's been a couple other tests that actually Duncan's actually done just himself. Do you want to talk about some of those ones, the large scale player tests?
Yeah, so
large scale tests.
We noticed that the players were kind of paying more attention to network and looking at Star Marine for how the networking handles on that, because you'd see that clip, for example, of Lyric, and the game is running really smooth and great, but then he encounters other players and they're like desyncing, they're jumping back and forth, they're like doing all this weird network related issues, and that kind of caught our attention, as well as the player posts about it. And we're like, what can we do to improve this, right? So I literally just jumped in to our servers, because I noticed that our servers always run at 30 FPS. I've never seen it drop below. So I was like, I wonder what we can do here. So
the Arena
I went
Commander
in.
servers.
Arena Commander.
Yeah,
I was going to
yes,
say the
sorry.
same thing.
The Arena Commander and Star
The
Marine
views and
servers,
opinions
not
of
the
Duncan Bunting do not represent those of Cloud Imperium Games, Roberts Space Industries, or its subsidiaries.
anything I talk about is Arena Commander. It's all I know. Yeah, so I jumped in and I spawned 300 Vandal, right? And the client obviously died, but the servers totally fine. I think they were running at 60 FPS in the end after all 300 had spawned. So our servers in Arena Commander are really robust, and that's led to some experimentation, like Sean hinted at there. We're experimenting with 144 hertz servers now and seeing where we can go with that. There's a bunch of refactors associated with it. It's sadly not a case, as I was hoping to just unlock that cap and see a performance increase. There's a couple refactors which we need to do to accommodate that increase. But I'm hoping that we see some network improvements, because I think that's our last, well, not last, but like the major hurdle that we've got now in terms of Star Marine performance. And the game runs amazing on it. Like we were saying, 120 FPS is average now. But the network issues are glaring because of that.
This is a good time to remind everybody that we are talking about Arena Commander in Star Citizen Alpha 320, and the shorthands and whatnot, the references that we'll be using are all exclusively to the Arena Commander and Star Marine environments, just in case anybody wants to take these things out of context and run with it to Reddit. From the beginning of time, from the beginning of all discussions on Star Marine and stuff, Chris, everybody has talked about this idea of having FPS fights, boarding actions aboard an Idris or a Javelin, a capital ship infiltration FPS experience and this kind of thing. Johnny is back with a question asking just that. Anything you can tell us about that? Those capital ship infiltration things that we've been discussing on and off of with Arena Commander for years.
Yes, Chris wants this so badly, and this is a mode that we've really got to get done. And I want to get one thing done first, and then we will be getting into something like this that has PvE, because he wants to capture the interest. We want to combine thing that is. It's the experience everybody wants. You know, you start off on a fleet battle and you end up, trying to take over a cap ship. You're assaulting the Idris. You're taking over a Bengal. You're whatever it is, an assault on a huge capital ship that actually doesn't just happen outside is a super fun experience, I think. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. And now with experimental modes set up in the way that we are, it's very, very easy for us to run and try out different modes that could be as complex as this. We wanted to start easy, and we did, with sort of single weapon elimination type stuff, Tonk Royale stuff, and even gun game. But there's no saying that more complex experimental modes aren't on the horizon.
I'm just going to combine a couple of these questions here into one. A lot of folks want to know, like, what the direction is as far as maps. Obviously, Arena Commander got several new maps he's getting several new maps with 320. Some brand new, like the new versions of the New Horizons Speedways and stuff. Some imported from the PU. As far as the Star Marine experience goes, have we begun developing any new strictly FPS maps that are original and unique to Star Marine?
Yeah, so we obviously have our classic maps there, and we've got Echo 11 that we've made a variant of for 320. As Sean said, starting small for now, but we're looking at the PU essentially for more locations that we can take stuff, because as we touched on in ISC, the PU has countless awesome locations that we can take and get into Star Marine in our FPS modes, so you can practice there. And we've been talking with the location teams, and they're so excited to work with us to get their locations into Star Marine and see where we can take that. Now, another aspect of that is I've saw so many requests for like a practice mode, right? For FPS, we have free flight for your ships, but for FPS, there hasn't really been anything. You can get out your seats in free flight, but all you have is the basic loadout with a pistol. Part of our spawning refactor and the spawn screen refactor is we're actually getting that loadout that you can use in FPS modes into free flight as well. So eventually that will become the primary, sorry, can't say words. That's going to be the place where we do FPS practice as well. But yeah, we're like FPS is my preference. I'm no good at spaceship fighting. I love FPS. So I'm very excited to see all the locations that we can bring in to Star Marine and get more variety in maps there.
The question was actually about unique maps to Star Marine, like Good Doctor, Echo 11 locations that don't exist in the PU. Are there any plans? Is any work ahead for maps unique just to Star Marine?
No, they're like no uncertain terms. Not really. This is on purpose though. This is to keep the team small. Well, to keep the team small. The team has always been small and will continue to be small. We don't want to hire up or form an art team just specifically for Star Marine or FPS levels. We have a huge art department within Star Citizen and within Squadron 42, and it feels like we should be able to piggyback off that large department. Now, does that mean we pull resources from Squadron or from Star Citizen? Not necessarily. Not if we don't have to. And that's why right now there's no plans really to pull any significant amount of resources from either one of those teams for making something that is unique just to Star Marine. What the team is comprised of is designers, engineers, and tech artists. So that is what we have, and we will continue to do things that make sense with the team that we have. I think it makes sense.
It's work smarter, not harder. It's
That's
utilize
kind of it,
all
yeah.
the art that's already being created by all these other teams, for the PU, and find ways to repurpose that into Star Marine, and then it really does. Star Marine really does fill its role as a simulation within the persistent universe. But,
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like I really tried to promise to the community that we don't pull resources from Star Citizen. We don't pull them from Squadron 42. That is a very a challenging aspect of the Arena Commander team, but it's a very important mandate that we have, that we try not to pull resources anyways from either one of the products. We do our own stuff as much as possible.
Yeah, not just do our own stuff, but assist those teams in
Yeah,
their testing and stuff. Like the SPK, for example, we've now got that in Star Marine. We can get very focused, quick feedback on that. If that was a new location, obviously it's been out for a while now. But when a new location is introduced, we can get that feedback from Arena Commander really quickly. Whereas, it takes time for the PU, or maybe it's not ready for the PU. We can feed back to that team straight away. So we're actually helping those teams as well as them helping us.
Yeah.
One more FPS question before we get back to the spaceships here for a bit. So we've been talking about the virtue of pulling these locations from the PU. Do you have any plans to add FPS PVE missions to Arena Commander? Any chance of pulling some of the actual mission gameplay instead of making little contained versions of that?
Yeah, I'm excited about this one, but Duncan, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So this is something that obviously comes after 320, not part of 320, but it's part of that experimental mode initiative, right? Like we see all the comments, like what happens if the AI are actually on a perfect server? People have encountered the AI on a good running PU server and went, they're really good. It's a really fun experience. So we want to get that into Arena Commander so that we can test and provide feedback to the AI team. While we're waiting for the PU to catch up on performance, we can get that feedback now in Arena Commander. So it is definitely something that we're going to be looking into pretty soon here. I'm really into FPS, so I'm really excited about that. And Sean might be able to talk about this more, but like we made the Good Doctor for this purpose. It is a player versus AI map.
Yeah, that was exactly it. Like back when Duncan was at Firesprite anyways, what we had started the Good Doctor for. And I laugh because the whole intention of that map was to be a PvE FPS survival. So exactly like Pirate Swarm, exactly like Vanduul Swarm, just with FPS. And it just so happened our AI wasn't quite to the state that we needed it to be at the given time. It took some training for certain people, and in the end, we were happy just to get it in as a deathmatch PvP map. But we do want this thing to be in. There was a whole story for it, like the Good Doctor.
Right.
The whole concept of the Good Doctor was there was a bunch of they were like scientist kind of cultist people, and the Good Doctor was this one guy that was basically taking over and stealing all these people from their cities and stuff. It was all a whole story, and you were going to fight the cultists. But yeah, neither here nor there. But we do want PvE survival. That's an important aspect of,
So
of
safe to
Arena
say,
Commanders.
yeah, safe to say that a swarm mode for a Good Doctor at least is still
Is
high,
definitely
somewhere on the to-do list.
Yeah, and now again with Squadron being much further from and in the AI, we have this thing that the concept of spawn closets there's this whole concept of just spawning an AI behind a closed door or something like this. So now that we've got all that, it's a lot easier to do. Yeah.
Okay. While we're talking about using, Arena Commander and Star Marine as a test bed, this next question is from Salty Mike. Sounds new. I've never heard of him. Is the plan to make Arena Commander game modes and the experience overall to be just a test bed for feedback and honing your skills, or is the intention to have the games be standalone fun experiences that people may play instead of Star Citizen?
Well, can't we have both?
I
I
think we can
mean,
have all.
I feel like we could have both of those things, because it does serve both purposes. It serves the purpose of being a test bed and everything for us. Like a good example is this Tank Royale that we have right now, Team Tank Royale and Tank Royale. Um, put those in there right now, and it gives focus testing in the wild of focus testing of the tank. And we get so much feedback that is sometimes you might think it's really obvious feedback, but actually it's not. Sometimes it needs to be played over and over and over in combat to get that kind of feedback. So it's a test bed. But Arena Commander is still a place where people bring, when you're bringing somebody into Star Citizen, I'm gonna think that most of the time you start them on Arena Commander and then you bring them into SC. I'm not saying people don't just bring people into SC, so please, there's no emails or anything. But most of the time, the easier startup for Star Citizen is within Arena Commander.
I think once
So I think it's a
custom
bit of
matches
both,
return,
right?
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, well, good point actually, because the the noob stomping that is happening right now within Arena Commander, it does not make it very, very welcoming for new players.
Oh, I remember Salty Mike. He works here. Okay.
Duncan, was there anything you wanted to add to that, or how you feel about AC?
Yeah, no, that's perfect response. Like we want Arena Commander to stand on its own, to be the strong product of Arena Star Citizen, and the competitive aspect and both the new player aspect. It needs to be new player friendly, and it needs to accommodate, that top 1% that we do have right now that are really into the competitive aspect of things. But we need to bring it back a little bit to being a test bed as well to benefit the PU, and we're really passionate about all aspects of that.
Next question's from Nightbird. Have you considered an anonymous mode for Battle Royale to prevent teamwork?
Yeah, so this leans into what Sean was mentioning there about noob stomping. Battle Royale is unfortunately the default game mode, right? Everyone just goes there to experience flight really quickly in Arena Commander, but it is not the best game mode, and it has the most active leaderboards, right? So the competitive community, they go into Battle Royale, but Battle Royale, being named Battle Royale before Battle Royales were a thing, it is just free for all, right? And free for all is not the best place to have as your main competitive mode. So we want to take Battle Royale away from that position and make competitive focus Squadron Battle and Duel, which is Squadron Battle is team versus team, whereas Duel is one versus one. It's a much more controlled competitive environment than a free-for-all. And I see the requests about Battle Royale and the complaints about Battle Royale, and it makes sense, we should do these things like maybe anonymous mode and all that. The real problem is that is the competitive mode. That's where people go right now for competitiveness. We need to move that focus to the other modes. And the reason it's not in the other modes is because they were buggy or there was problems with them, like Duel didn't have rounds and so forth. 320 fixes most of those. So we're hoping to see that transition to those being the competitive modes. And then again, we'll visit the leaderboards to, should Battle Royale even have a leaderboard? We need to get the Duel leaderboard in there, right? So that people actually have a leaderboard to grind for that 1v1. And there already is for Squadron Battle. But again, the bugs prevented people from enjoying that as they should. But yeah, don't know what more to add to that. I don't know why I said, but yeah, but
obviously, a lot of people play 1v1 just because, that they want to get in, they want to experience themselves, they want to test themselves against everybody else and stuff. Have we, over the years, we've seen rise of 2v2 game modes, 3v3 or squads and stuff like that. Has there been any thought about the smaller squad modes?
Yeah, so I've been talking to these competitive orgs and seeing what kind of experimental game modes they would benefit from, right? Because these experimental game modes, some of them lean more in arcadey, some of them are to test features and whatnot. But what can we do to test things with the competitive people? And what would they actually like to see? What one request I see reoccurring is a wingman mode, right? So that's 2v2. Maybe V2, 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 like something like that, to really hone your skills as a wingman as part of your as a competitive mode. So we'd be up for exploring that in the future with experimental modes now that we have those.
It was always nice for me, back during the original StarCraft competitive scene when I would do 2v2, V2, V2, so that I would have somebody else to blame when I lost.
So, yeah, teamwork is essential. It gives the enemy somebody else to shoot at, right?
You're here to absorb my bullets.
Exactly.
And then to go back to Salty Mike stuff real quick, and obviously the experimental modes, the very invention of experimental modes are a big part of how we're going to serve both of those objectives. It's like when you want that fun, you distinct, individual gameplay experience, that's supposed to stand on its own. Those are the core modes. And then when you want to help test and break down and evaluate, potential new features for the PU and stuff, that's the experimental modes.
100%, man. A great way to explain it. And let me take you one step further is what do we do with all of that now? So okay, we have the experimental modes where we're doing tests and trying new things, right? And we've got our sort of solid modes. These are the ones we know are being played. We like them. Everything's good. AAA, these are great. So what we'll be checking on is during the experimental modes are people playing them? Are they really engaged with them or not? And should we promote it to a mode or not? And then at the same time, we'll be looking at all the current modes that are online. We're going, okay, are people playing them? Are they engaged with them? If they're not, we're going to drop them. If they are, then we're going to promote them. And basically, you'll see the game mode shift around like this. But we're going to data drive it. There's no reason to just guess. We have the analytics for all of this information. We know how many people play, Pirates Swarm versus how many people play racing versus. So we can make decisions according to that. So I think it sets us up in a really nice framework to be able to do all this.
We talked earlier about obviously wanting to be able to access Arena Commander from those sim pods that used to exist in the hangars. Place them on important stations like Seraphim or in landing zones and such like that. Access. Well, clever name for what he's asking. He wants to know if we'll ever be able to access AC from basically anywhere, like just queue, for specific matches. Keep flying around in the PU, and then queue and pop in, and then pop back out, and you're right back where you were.
It's a great question. Yes, I want this, and I've talked to Chris about this on length. There's some tech that we need to get in place to make this possible. I had this whole concept, and this was again long back, even during Fire Sprite time, where like you could go into AC from the seat of your ship. It's funny because we actually had it right on the initial stages of AC. That's how you got into AC, was you got into your ship and then you went into
Right.
Arena Commander. But um, yeah, but what we want to set up is basically the same.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be some considerations for the exploiting though. Like your ship can't just disappear from the PU, or people will queue for matches and then go cause havoc, and then in
Oh,
the middle of causing
well,
havoc, accept their queue.
yeah, let me explain a scenario then. I don't think you log them out. Is the point? I don't think they log out of the PU. I think they're still there. So if you ever seen Black Mirror, there was a great episode, anyways, where they would go into a VR, and basically they put this little thing on the side of their head, and boom, they were out. They were like laying on their couch, and at one point in it, a little kid comes in and he's kicking the guy in his legs, and he gets this little notification, right, and then he comes back out and he's back in the world. And I love this concept of you sitting in your fighter ship. You're in quantum, right? You log out, you want to go, get the high score, you want to, race one of the circuits, whatever, while you're doing quantum, but you get a little beep, 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 shut down whatever you're doing in Arena Commander, get back to, reality, and you're under fire from a bunch of pirates that interdicted you or something. I love that concept, and that's where we would love to take Arena Commander to, but obviously requires some pretty significant technology in terms of our server meshing and persistence to be able to keep those ships around whilst we boot up. And actually, I mean, since we're pontificating, and this, let me be clear, this is pontification. We are theory crafting here. This isn't a plan. This is an idea that we would love to get to. But the tech that it requires is significant. Having said that, though, Duncan, of course, and in every one of these so far, I think I've had a Duncan has tried a X. So Duncan has tried to have a standalone Arena Commander run in the past. Did you want to talk about that a little bit or no?
I can say that, yeah, I did the test, and
It
booting
kind of
up
works.
Arena Commander is, separate executable was one of the strategies I wanted to, would it even work, right? Is the load time acceptable? With all the performance upgrades that we've had in recent times, that the load times are incredibly fast now, and we're able to boot from nothing to arena straight into an Arena Commander game in about 40 seconds, which is pretty impressive considering it's booting up the entire game to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the test that I did. Don't
So
know if it'll go somewhere, but it's exciting nonetheless to see how fast things are improving in terms of load times.
yeah.
And you'll see with 320 when you load into a map, it is ridiculously fast how fast you get into the action now. Whereas before, you might have a minute on a load screen for some of the maps.
Yeah, it's important to add. One of the stories we're going to tell in next quarter's up ISC is about prototyping and the process of prototyping and testing and stuff. Even when something fails, it's successfully finding one way not to do it. So it's don't.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I want to caution folks against. Running to the internet, whatever, and be like, oh, they're testing separate executables or blah 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 blah. We try a lot of things. It's game development, not game construction. Half the things we try are to find avenues we don't want to go into, and then other times it's like, oh well, that actually works. Okay, maybe that's something that's worth pursuing and stuff. So just we're getting
If they
into a part
knew,
of the show.
Yeah.
if they knew half of the stuff I've tried, I mean,
We're getting into a part of the show
I'm
now that's
telling
going to be
you,
a bit more experimental and things we'd like to
no,
do. And
not that kind of experimental.
It's one of those things where a programmer is in a meeting and they hear a director or designer say something like, "Oh, it's probably not possible," you know. That to a programmer, that's a challenge. I want to figure out how to do that, right? So
Yeah.
people are like, you can't just load into Arena Commander like that. I'm like, I bet you I
Yeah.
can. That's essentially what it becomes. And that prototyping, that's part of the fun as well of game dev. And I love doing that kind of stuff. Like Sean may have stories of my prototype folder that I have of just random things that I've tried throughout the years. And some of them became things. So the Pirate Swarm update, that became thanks to one of those videos that I made of just something I was experimenting with, and the new Vandal Swarm that's coming for 320 as well.
I want to make sure we answered that question though.
What was the question? I forgot.
Clearly, well, it was about logging out,
Oh, right.
right? Whether or not he can log out. So we got the dream. Um, in the next soon in the next little while, we want to get the sim pods back into the PU and make sure that that's actually working. I have one very specific implementation that I want the sim pods to be at. For every time that we have a racing map within Arena Commander and within the Persistent Universe, I'd like some sim pods to be around the Persistent Universe location, because that way, when you show up, you don't have to risk your ship for the first time. You can actually jump into the sim, you park your ship, lock it, jump into the sim pod and try it out, and then jump into your real ship and actually do it. So, but it's those kind of connective things that we want to do a lot more of. So, anyways, hopefully that fully answers that question.
So we've talked a lot about the performance improvements, things that are possible with the Arena Commander servers at the moment and stuff. What's the discussion about player limits like?
I'm not. We're looking at each other, wondering who's going to talk about it.
I can talk if you'd like.
Go ahead.
So, as some people might know, with the old Arena Commander that's currently live, you're locked to a maximum of 4 people in your squad. Whereas the game modes themselves, they vary in player limit. I believe elimination is 12 players or 24, one of the two. And Squadron Battles 16, I believe, 8 versus 8, right? But you can only bring 4 people as part of your squad. So the player limits are staying the same for now. Experimental modes, we're going to experiment with upping some player limits. We already did that for free 19, I believe. We upped the player cap of free flight from I think it was 12 to 24, and we got a lot of really good data from that. And players got to experience bigger org events inside Free Flight, right? But to go back to the squad thing, you're limited to 4 right now, but with this new front end, we're finally able to unlock that cap that was there. So now it's either what the limit is for that game mode. If it's elimination, you can bring up to 12 friends into an elimination match with you. Or if it's a team mode, it's the amount of people you can fit into a team. So for Squadron Battle, that would be 8 is your cap for your squad.
Yeah. But you want to go on record, we got, the PU is running 50 players at the moment, 25 versus 25 for Arena Commander. Entice you?
I want to see it. Yeah. I want to see more. I want, like I said, I spawned 300 Vandal. I've saw where
Theaters of War. Oh, excuse me. What's that?
Views and opinions of Sean Tracy do not represent those of Collaborative Games, Robert Space Industries.
I got a bit of a cold. I have a cold.
Let's see. The Eradicator.
Trying to tee you up.
Speaking of player limits, dynamic events. Could dynamic events become their own game modes in Arena Commander? Each game would be limited in time, and the team with the most points at the end of the time limit wins. This could include Jumptown, Ninetales Lockdown, and maybe even a PvP version of a single-platform Siege of Origin. What do you think? He's got suggestions.
I like it. And the nice thing about the pipelines that we've developed here, being able to take the entirety of a PU location within, hours, it's super fast for us to be able to replicate. So it's quite nice. Makes a lot of sense to do these. So you do it the same way as an experimental to a degree. We would take an event if it was a super duper popular event. Let's say like Siege of Orison is perfect, right? Siege of Orison is a popular event. Everybody's playing it. Everybody still wants to play it. Maybe we put something similar to that into an experimental mode. If the engagement keeps up, then it turns into a fully fledged, game mode of itself. But this is all possible now, absolutely. And each one of these, anytime there's a scenario, and I hate to go here one more time, but anytime there's a scenario, I always call it like very similar to what a Theaters of War is when there's a scenario. That's what we've always called a theater of war within Arena Commander.
Any plan to add this from Vladian Valier? Any plan to add training modules for other gameplay besides combat and racing? Things like mining, salvaging, bounty hunting, escaping from bounty hunters, just other gameplay besides racing and fighting.
Yeah, so when free 18 first went out, I saw something fascinating, which really opened my eyes to what free flight can eventually become. And that was that the PU went down. It wasn't available for a good, at least couple hours, I think. But that was when salvaging came out, right? And players really wanted to salvage. So their solution, instead of going to the PU, they went to Arena Commander. I would hop into a match or I'd go on Twitch or something and open up a stream and they're salvaging in Arena Commander. I'm like, damn, that's something we should be accommodating, right? And that goes for mining and all these other gameplay loops. And that, mining, let's put some minables in there. If they don't want to go for the PU for now, they want to just do a quick little test in Arena Commander, hop in, hop out. We can supply a simple mineable in Broken Moon, say, and they can just fly up and do their mining gameplay. It's not going to have the progression that the PU has, and that you go off and sell those things. But you'd be able to experience that gameplay and practice that gameplay before going through all the jumps and hoops to do that in the persistent universe. So yeah, if expanding free flight to accommodate all these things, maybe not the bounty hunter stuff. We have the PvP game modes already for that, but definitely when it comes to mining, salvaging, and these other non-shooty roles, right? Non-combat, that's the word I was looking for. We can use free flight as our mini sandbox.
Non-shooty.
Just jump into Battle Royale and pretend everybody owes you money. Bounty hunting. It's not that simple. I'm gonna get an angry letter from Todd. One of the other aspects that is coming to Arena Commander in Alpha 3.20 is multi-crew. The ability to actually crew up some of our multi-crew vehicles. Shafto is back. Seriously, see a doctor. Will a player who spawned as the gunner in a hammerhead in Arena Commander be able to exit their turret in case it's damaged and change to a new one?
Well, yeah. I mean, whoa. We're talking about in free flight or in not, because I have feelings on all the different modes and what they should be, because actually I don't think it's all shared and it's all the same. In free flight, 100%, you should be able to get out of your turret and walk around your ship and do things. Like, here's the thing: we have multi-role ships that have a engineering panel. We've got other things to do within the ship than only manning a turret that can actually help. And there's tons of design already in place that is gonna be done so that there is more multi-crew stuff to be done. Long story short, you've got to be able to access the inside of your ship. And also, like, just in general, I've always hated games that make you a cockpit that is like glued to the camera, rather than I'm a character inside of a ship, flying around. It's what I've always really liked about Star Citizen, is that we don't really fake any of it. You're not a cockpit flying around and just hovering around. You're an actual character inside of the ship, inside of space, flying around. So I think you should be able to walk around.
But in 320, in the other game modes though, where you can't freely walk around, but you can spawn into the turrets, what happens if their turret gets destroyed? Will they be able to use the spawn screen to move to another turret?
Duncan? I'm not actually sure.
So unfortunately, the multi-crew aspect of the spawn screen didn't pass its go, so it's not coming with 320. We're going to see what we can do, but it's unlikely to be in that patch. Definitely a follow-up, because it's something we're super passionate about, right? But as far as the plans for that multi-crew, we've discussed multiple ways to go about this. Like, do you spawn into a turret and then do you use your F keys like you do in other games to switch between the turrets, hot switch? No, we want to be representative of the PU. You go into the PU in a hammerhead as, say, 8 people. You've got all those turrets, you've got a co-pilot, pilot, and so on. You should be able to get out that. Say you got a damaged turret, you need to go repair some module within your ship as an engineer. We want to support that in Arena Commander, right? So we don't want to introduce these gamey things where you just hot switch between your turrets. Yeah, you can maybe die and end up back in the spawn screen, select where you want to spawn again. But in terms of how you move about your ship, we want to help the PU once again in exploring this multi-crew gameplay and how that affects the game overall.
one of the other aspects there's so many new aspects coming to Arena Commander 320. The New Horizons Speedway maps are now actually in atmosphere and on a planet, green. So the first planet that's kind of exclusive to Arena Commander for the moment. Spiro wants to know if it's possible to get down to the planet and land and explore the planet at all.
The short answer is yes. You in free flight, or I mean any mode, you can go down and do whatever you want, right? Some modes have playable areas, so you can only go so far. But free flight, just like you can in Broken Moon and Dying Star, in Broken Moon and Dying Star, you can go land on these landing pads or the space station that we've got there. And in the Winner's Circle, the atmospheric map that we've got coming for 320, that you can go land on the planet. You can run across the beaches, go dip in the water if you really want to do that. Now, the map isn't necessarily built for that. It's meant for these flight modes at the moment, but I'm hoping we can expand upon that and give more reason to go down in the FPS. And like I was saying earlier, now that we've done the spawning refactoring, we can get you in your actual FPS loadout rather than this default one with a pistol. You can set up some event where maybe you set up an org event in free flight and you want to go down on the planet and have that 12v12 experience or whatever it may be on the ground of this planet. We want to really facilitate that, especially in free flight. Being able to do what you want.
So you're saying that you just backdoored access to a new planet through Arena Commander?
Kind of, right? So we worked with the planet team on building this brand new planet, right? But it takes a lot more work to get a planet ready for the PU than it does for Arena Commander. For Arena Commander, we can be like, you're going to be generally above the tree line. You're going to be fighting at a distance from this and that, and we can contain you within an area if we need to be. So we say that to the planet team, and like, all right, this is what we can achieve. We can get this close to bringing green to life. Now it's going to be lacking a lot of the things that are PU exclusive items like bunkers or mission location cities, whatever it may be, right? But what we've got right now is in there for Arena Commander, and that's why the ground isn't necessarily built for it just yet, because it's focused on the flight modes for now.
A little. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sean.
We did, however, backdoor Skybox.
Yeah, we got the real Pyro Skybox. Yeah, real Pyro Skybox.
Fun fact, Dying Star.
Dying Star.
Yeah, so Dying Star now has the actual background that is built for the Pyro system.
Built for Pyro. I'm sure they'll update it too, but yeah.
Well, no. Once we put something in, we never iterate and upgrade on things later.
The very cool thing about our new map creation process is if it is changed, we get the change. So as we're developing the Pyro Skybox, maybe something does change. You'll be able to see that in Dying Star up until, you can see it in Pyro for yourself.
All right. So the next question is about master modes. So we've done 3 episodes of ISC about Arena Commander this year, because building towards this release in 320. And one of the things that never quite made the episodes, but we talked about offline, is this hope that we might be able to get master modes going in Arena Commander as a true experimental mode, as a true test bed. Talk to me about how that process is, because right now, unless I'm not reading my emails correctly, there's Evocati testing of master modes in Arena Commander happening now, right?
That's right. Yep. There's testing master modes right now. And actually, full disclosure, I was way more worried about doing this. And it was Duncan's real passion for master modes and actually for the game overall that actually got this in, because he really, really drove this one through. So it's great that I want to let Duncan talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to that whole, we want to bring Arena Commander back to being a test bed. There is no better way to make that statement than to get such a monumental feature, such a fundamental feature to our flight model featured in Arena Commander, so we can get that feedback now rather than much later. As you know, Master Mode it's going to take a while before it reaches the PU. It's a full retuning of every ship, and everything is changing. If we can get that testing done now with a limited selection of ships, right now we've got the Gladius running in Evocati. You can jump in the Gladius on I believe it's Dual, Vandal Swarm, and Free Flight. the feedback we're getting has been tremendously helpful. I've been in the chats with the vehicle teams that they're like seeing stuff that is helped push the direction of master modes, but also fix up bugs, which better fix now than later, right? When it affects the PU. And yeah, right now we're testing in Ivikai. It's going very well received, and lots of amazing feedback. And we don't want to stop with Ivikai, right? PTU eventually, with the waves from PTU, we want to get their hands on master modes, get even more wider feedback from a wider range of players. And of course, that leads us into live, right? It's part of our experimental mode drop. And yeah, shame we couldn't talk about it on ISC before. It just missed it. We filmed for ISC, and I believe that the next Friday after was when we got the final approval for master modes to be featured in Arena Commander, because we wanted some extra updates from Squadron in there, and we looked at it, and it was an amazing experience, and we want to share that testing process with players, and now we finally can, thanks to the invention of experimental mods.
But you hear how
Okay.
sorry, just to piggyback, you hear how tight that layer is now between the two. Like the reason I was so worried about this was the timing, like the fact that it was even between your ISC and now that just a whole new mode, multiple modes actually, and changes the ship was able to be brought online. So I mean, and just the layer between players and devs on the experimental mode is so thin, which is really good for feedback.
Yeah. The whole thing of experimental modes came about is we have weekly playtests. Like every team has weekly playtests, but I like to join other teams to get their perspective on how they're doing things and how Arena Commander can help their progression. And I was joining the vehicle teams regularly, and we were testing master modes, and we would go into Dying Star, and we'd be like, all right, here's the tunings that we're going to be testing today. Next week it's a different set, and I was just in those sessions. I'm like, man, I wish we could share this with players. How much valuable feedback will we get from being able to share this with a wider variety of people? And it really resonated with everyone when presenting to them as well, on what we can bring to experimental modes.
Need to remind you to turn off your auto exposure on your webcam before we do this next time. Your webcam's like really on one right now. It is just like, rah, rah, rah. You can figure that out. Now the master modes, while Duncan figures out the auto exposure, we're almost done. But you know, while getting master modes into Arena Commander, this is a version of master modes because, like I said, the reason we can bring it into Arena Commander is because it is just the Gladius right now, and you've had to do some engineering to finagle it to work with the existing PU HUD and stuff, right? Because it's being developed under the Squadron branch, and they have an updated HUD and visor and stuff like that. So there was a fair bit of work massaging this to get into Arena Commander, right?
Yeah, so some of it was actually already done ahead of getting the game mode developed. The game modes were originally developed. I essentially made them the week after I had that thought when I was sitting with VFT. I met with Yogi and some of the other VFT programmers, and I'm like, how can we get this across? And they're like, well, we use a CVAR, right? A command variable for non game devs, and this turns this on, we need this on, and so forth. So we got a big list of all the things that need to be on, and we made them what we call game rules parameters. Game rules being the parameters that control all of our game mode, for lack of better words. I'm very sorry about my camera. I tried to fix it. And we turn those CVARs into parameters so we can change it per game mode. So we're not affecting PU, we're not affecting other game modes. We are affecting only the ones that are labeled as master modes to have these certain things enabled. And thanks to some fine tuning from the vehicle team and others on making those features available, we're able to do that. And again, going with the Gladius, we had to take the old Gladius and get it to work with new systems, right? And thankfully the vehicle team, experts in that area, were able to take these new systems and plug them into the old Gladius so that we can have not the full experience, because that's some of it isn't ready yet to even get feedback. It wouldn't be valuable feedback for now. but we've got what we need to be able to get good feedback and in the current Gladius, so that there's no holding back. We're like, we don't want to wait for this and that to finish to be able to get this in your hands. Once it's in an acceptable state where we can assess that feedback and benefit from it, that's when we want to push it out, and now is that time.
Yeah. All right, we've only got a few minutes left. Let's see if we can squeeze a couple more questions in here. So one of the new game modes is Tonk Royale. Our first ground vehicle combat is coming to Arena Commander in 320 with the Nova Tonk. It's Tonk, by the way. And if you don't know why, ask your elders. This landscaper has a question about destructible environments. Will things like a chain link fence stop our 70-ton tanks in Arena Commander?
Oh, it's such a pet peeve, and chain link fences. You could have small trees will stop you. Little rocks. Not forever, of course not. We're working internally on quite a large. I want to call it a refactor of our damage system, and it's called Maelstrom, and it's probably been talked about on Jared. I'm not sure how much or not Maelstrom has been discussed. Never. Okay. It doesn't matter. It's not really an NDA or an internal thing. It's just an internal system that we call Maelstrom, and what it's going to be is our physical damage, and how that all works together. So basically, it's destructibles. It's how the ships break apart. It's how characters break apart. All these things. So yeah, we want to make sure that things that are in those levels with the tanks, especially with ground vehicles, and any of these scenarios, because it's not just tanks. It's the Ursa really shouldn't be stopped by things. All those should be physicalized within the world. Now, it's a little easier for us to do this within Arena Commander than it is within Star Citizen. Not in terms of making the asset. I mean in terms of persisting it, in terms of, think about it, right? You've got a whole bunch of chain link fences. You've got to run them over. Then you've got to persist the fact that they're all actually falling down. There's a whole bunch more extra work to be done in Star Citizen to scale it across everything. But in Arena Commander, I think you can expect as much. That fences come down and small twigs and things that you would expect not to stop you don't stop you with an Arena Commander.
Let's see. Dear
Anything that wrecks the gameplay.
Chris Roberts. Oh no, it happened again.
Maelstrom. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
All right, we got time for two more questions. Let's do two more questions. This one doesn't have a name on it. What experimental mode would you like to see most in Arena Commander?
You want to go first, Sean?
No.
No. Okay, so
Go ahead. Go ahead, say
for
it.
me,
He knows.
okay, I'll go first, and then I'll let Sean. The Arena Commander team is made up by people that are super passionate about modding in games. Like, a lot of us come from modding backgrounds, myself included. So I resonate a lot with the old Counter-Strike game mods, Gun Rush being heavily inspired by that, right? So that's a personal favorite of mine. But I want to explore some more out-the-box ideas along similar lines, but like more out the box, right? So I've always wanted asymmetrical teams or multiple teams, something along those lines. The first thing that comes to mind is Infection, where you've got 1 versus 50 or something like that, and that one is like super powered. Be it maybe it's FPS, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's one tank versus 50 guys just running about. Who knows? I want to experiment with asymmetrical gameplay and maybe multiple teams as well, things like that.
I can see the footage now of one tank just mowing through 50 people in like Star Citizen, Arena Commander.
That's the dream.
Sean?
That's the dream. Yeah. Well, Theaters of War. That's one of them. But beyond Theaters of War, what I'd like to see is actually it's funny, similar to Duncan, Goliath mode. Goliath mode is like a 1v4, a 1v6, asymmetrical sort of gameplay. And again, it's kind of expected in theater scenarios that we do have asymmetrical gameplay. But yeah, something like a Goliath mode I think is really cool. Fun modes like that.
And then the last question is, of course, Theaters of War. It seems like a natural fit that the whole idea of it would make for an excellent, experimental mode. Are we doing it? What's the plan here?
Yes, for my heart. Oh my goodness. I need this. I need this for my soul. I need this to go to the experimental mode, the exact map, Crossroads of Crime, that we had been developing and continue to develop and kept in decent enough shape that it can be wrapped up and it can be shipped. So we want to get that done and get that into an experimental mode. We want to get it done.
All right. Anything you want to add, Duncan?
Yeah, I mean, Fears of War, near and dear to my heart. Spent many years working on it, and it's one of those things we play tested it every single week with the company, and it's one of those things I look back on, similar to my experience with the vehicle team, is that why aren't players involved? That there is shortcomings of it, but with experimental modes, hopefully we can have that caveat. We can bring, the player cap down. That we want to target 50 plus or whatever it may be players, but for now we're going to try 20 because the performance is more acceptable and so on and so forth. But yeah, that we need to get it out there, right? It's been in the burner in the cooker for far too long, right? And players just need to experience it. We need to continue developing it. And part of stage one, laying the foundations, which we've been experiencing up till 320, is all about getting those critical refactors that we're maybe holding some critical things back with Fears of War and other things that we want to work on. And we simply needed to take that time, do those refactors, and then we can visit the big exciting things, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, everyone wants to work on the big exciting things. That's a given. No one really wants to do these fundamental refactors of very low end code that doesn't give immediate results. But now that we finally have done these things and they're coming to a close this year, we can unlock the potential of all the things that we want to do, and including that is Fears of War.
Yeah, and Duncan said it, and the way I said it was my appetite at this point for cuts and chops to make it so that we can get this, so that it's shippable, so that we weren't just having everything that we wanted and we weren't making any cuts and we weren't going to move anything. No, we want to get this out to the players now.
Yeah. So I think it was there was a statement made maybe just 2 weeks ago. It's the 13th, so probably somewhere around June 28th. Theaters of War is being worked on. Our immediate focus is on, improving these features and getting this new foundation for Arena Commander underway, then working on things like multi-crew spawning and all that stuff. But as for the TOW game mode itself, we want to bring it back to a playable state because you can't leave it too long. Things decay. You can't ignore it for too long. You don't want it to fall into disrepair and, it just can't be used. So the team's going to return back and put some focus on that, and with the hope of returning as an experimental mode in the sometime future. I'm not going to say any period of time. We know better than that now, don't we, Sean?
Soon, TM.
What? What?
All right. So, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for watching this episode of Star Citizen, perhaps not so live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. That was Sean Tracy and Duncan Bunting, two members of the brilliant Arena Commander feature team. Real quick, we did it during the segment. Let's shout out everybody else. It's Mark Abent. It's Kirk Tomei. Who else am I forgetting? Sam
Boss, Adrian
Sam Boss, I
Torres.
almost called him his last name. Yeah, it's old one.
We've got Ricky, our QA. We've got Simon and Brennan in the UK. Soon Brian is joining us. Corwin, our producer. Yep.
So a small, tight team, but getting your time in the sun with Arena with Alpha 320. It's been a long time coming, and I'd like to think I speak for enough people when I say that we're excited about what's coming to 320 and the bright new future for Arena Commander moving forward. So thank you for being here, everybody.
We forgot about Teddy. Get that in there.
Oh yeah, and Teddy.
Teddy's new.
Teddy's new.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Cool.
Take care. Remember, ISC still on hiatus. We come back not next Thursday, the Thursday after that. And of course, the CitizenCon season, I think there are still tickets available on the website. You can check that out at robertspaceinitiatives.com. It's a 2-day event over in Los Angeles. I get to go home for the first time since moving to the other side of the world. I hope somebody fed my fish. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later, everybody. Bye.